Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
From the Steel Valley Soccer Studios in Boardman with Tim Walsh, Dan Conley, and Chris Platten. This is Pitchmen.
All right, welcome to Steel Valley Soccer. This is Pitchmen. I'm with Dan Conley and Chris Platten. As always, I'm Tim Walsh. Today we're going to talk about some topics because we took the last couple months off to get ready for a college ID camp we are trying to run to promote the area high school players. Unfortunately, Dan, how come that didn't come to fruition? Do you know?
Participation. I don't know if it was people just didn't know about it or weren't interested in it, but hopefully we'll give it another year.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. We've been doing a lot of things and just kind of going with it and to see how it goes. This was one of the ones where we had about 6 to 7 college coaches that were going to come in and run them through some drills. Didn't get as many people as we want. We didn't want to waste anyone's time or money.
Right. I think normally you have maybe 1 or 2 kids per team that go to these college ID camps on average every year. It's because nothing's really been close, and we tried making it so more accessible for more players to go to. And I just don't think they really know what it is and stuff like that. But
I agree. I think that it was made and kind of very beneficial for the underclassmen, for the people that are freshmen, sophomore, junior. See what is out there. See what the colleges are looking for. See how you stack up against other people, and kind of if you're not stacking up the way you think you are, it's motivation to do better.
Right.
And if you are above where you thought you were, it's like, hey, I could do this. It gives you that confidence. So hopefully next year will be the year that we are able to do so. And fun stuff on that.
Yeah, I will say a lot of times if a player is considering playing in college, it's getting your name out there, letting teams know you're interested in it, and wait until your senior year. You're ending your junior year, going into your senior is kind of late because a lot of those colleges have some scholarship spots already offered. So the most important year is your end of your sophomore, going into your junior year. That off season there, getting your name out, because then they'll start inviting you. It's not just one off season worth of invites. You'll get 2 seasons of it. So
I agree. What do you think, Chris?
Yes.
All right. Let's move along down to our new things for 2023. What we have up on our screen right now, we're going to talk about the divisional layout that the OHSAA has put out to see who's in what division. We're going to talk a little bit about them, starting with the girls squad. Still in Division 1, we still keep those same 4 teams, Harding, Fitch, Boardman, Howland. What do you guys think is the team to beat out of those 4?
I mean, going off of last year, it's got to be Howland, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. They got a young team. They got a coach that's motivated, that's been around soccer all year round. I see him every other weekend. I think Howland, out of those 4, has the best chance to do something out of this area.
I will say, out of those four teams, I know Harding, every year they do better than I expect them to do. They get results against teams I don't expect them to get results from, but Fitch and Boardman, they're always in every game too. Mm-hmm. It's not just Howland's far and away better.
Well, I will say last year we live streamed their game, Fitch versus Boardman, and they scored as many goals as they added in female students to their population, 0. So both of them stayed at exactly the same number. Harding lost a few, Howland gained a few, but Harding, again, it's one of those, they're doing the right thing. Their coach has them in the right direction. They're getting some talented players and developing the players that they have. I'm excited to see them. I hope we get to do a couple of their games this upcoming fall. In Division 2, some schools lost a lot. Girard, West Branch, 5+ change from last year, but the same 9 teams are in Division 2. Ursuline jumping up into the middle of the pack there with the amount of girls they have in their school.
Right, and that's a common trend, I feel. When I 5-6 years ago, I feel like Ursuline's enrollment and Mooney's was down. And it's a good thing they're going back up. I will say, Canfield has the most girls in Division 2 in our area, 276, and they're 36 more than the next team down, which is Hubbard. Mm-hmm. I wonder how close they are, because I know they kind of drift up and down between D2, D1. I wonder how close they are to that D1 line.
Both boys and girls have done that in the past, to where they've been D1 one year, D2 the next year. There's some good teams. We're looking at Division 2. Canfield, they won a district championship. Hubbard, very good under Coach McMillan. Salem was very good. Niles, under the other McMillan, played well. They had that 25 goal scorer. God, I can't think of her name.
Brianna Bash.
That's exactly who it is. Very good, Dan. Ursuline had a good year. West Branch won their first district championship. Now, that's kind of surprised me that they've only won one. They've had so many talented teams. Right. But I think before the super district, they had to run in through Canfield every time, and it just so happened Canfield was a step better.
Yeah, I think these super districts do give more teams an opportunity to make a run and see teams you're not going to see.
Absolutely. Girard, Struthers, and Beaver Local. Now, I add Beaver Local into these lists. I don't think the Beaver Local teams are in our Youngstown district.
I honestly have no idea.
Them and when we go to Division 3, Grand Valley, I don't know if they are or not. I add them in. I add Waterloo in every now and again because they have a very talented team, very talented player in that Kiera English. Let's look at Division 3. 16 teams. Now, there used to be 18. Lordstown, they were not on the list. I don't know if they're going to have a team this fall. And Latonia. So if you are from Lordstown or Latonia and you are having a team, email us. Let us know. We'll talk about you a little bit more. But looking at our list here, who are some teams that jump out to you, Dan or Chris?
Yeah, I'll start off with Poland. I always think of Poland as a D2 team, and them going out of D3, it kind of eases the road to a district championship for them.
Yeah, and not to say there's not good D3 teams, but like you say, going from D2 to D3, probably an easier road in our area.
Yeah, I mean, it's not saying anything. It's Division 2, I feel more teams are solid. You have more, your average teams. D3, you have your great teams and you have your bad teams. I think the difference between your good and your bad in D3 is much, much broader than D2.
Yeah, and they made it to a regional final.
Yeah.
And they lost by 1. I want to say Bay Village. I'll probably mess that up. No, they had a very good year. I think we put them as one of the top 5 teams ever because of how well they did. There's no area team on the girls' side that have ever won a regional final. We're hoping 2023 is that year, right? Chris, anything else from the D3 side of things?
No.
Okay. Just some of the other teams I see. Champion, I saw that Kuhn has decided to play at Notre Dame College up in Cleveland. She's committed there, verbal, if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to have a very good team again. South Range might be a little down. They're starting off with another coach. And Mooney surprised the crap out of us. They played for a district championship last year after maybe losing their first 4.
Right. They play a tough schedule. And your regular season prepares you for the playoffs. And that's exactly what happened. They had got all their trialed and that phrase.
Which brings me to the next topic that I don't have on our list here, but we're going to go to. Do you think it's better to play a bunch of tough teams and maybe only go a little bit over 500, but be ready for the playoffs? Or do you play teams that you think are beatable, but not that tough, so that you have you're riding high as you go into the playoffs?
I would say I look at high school soccer in 3 phases. Your preseason gets you ready for the regular season. Your regular season gets you ready for the playoffs. With that being said, I'd rather put some good teams in there and get yourself ready for when it comes time for playoffs. You've already seen a lot of things that these teams are trying. Yeah. Give your team some adversity to work through.
I see both sides of it. I know that success for a team is what's your record, how did you do in your conference, and what'd you do in the playoffs. So if you can somehow be first or second in your conference, make a run at a district title, and have a winning record, boom, you have a successful season. But if you're scheduling some of these big dogs and you're getting killed by remember when Crestview boys team, unbelievable, lost 1 game all season, but it was Bay Village, they lost 8-0.
Yeah.
If they scheduled all teams like that, do you think they'd have the confidence and the motivation to get ready for the playoffs and have them ready for it? Or do you think that's just a special team, no matter who you put in front of them, they're going to be ready in the playoffs?
I mean, they were a special team, but I'm sure playing multiple teams like that would help them out. I don't think it would have hurt them, I'll say that. Okay.
Because that's always as a head coach, you're like, all right, I got a schedule. You always have one team, I think, that you can get everybody on the roster in and everyone be happy for that, at least one game. You
got to mix it in there. You have if as a head coach, I would try to schedule a little bit easier of a game after a couple of hard games. Maybe try to re-roll your confidence in there, but I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing what you got on a nightly basis.
Yeah, I agree. Chris?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I will say too, talking divisions for breakdowns and stuff. for D1, two of the best teams I've ever seen play in the regular season for D1 was Howland 2016. I think they went undefeated. It was like 17-0-2, and they lost in the second round to Walsh Jesuit. And 2012's Fitch team that went undefeated in the regular season and lost in the second round to Massillon Jackson. And not saying they played cake schedules because they got to play conference games.
And you don't want to travel halfway across the world every week.
D1's just a different animal. And I will say, I think for at least Fitch's that year, I think a couple more hard games would have maybe gave them a little edge going into it.
And I think, I don't know, who the heck scheduled that schedule for those guys? In my defense, because it was me, in my defense, I knew we were good. I didn't know how good that team was going to be.
Right.
And it's tough because you want to put teams in there that you can compete with and hopefully battle with, and the good teams around here. But then every night, like, I'm sure Crestview thought they could compete with Bay Village, and it probably, I don't know. I think that probably helped them, knocked them down a peg, and said, "Hey,
right,
if you want to win a state championship, you got to beat the teams like this."
Yeah, if you're skull dragging everybody, you have to.
Yeah, well, they were winning teams 16-0. I always think like that's such an anomaly. That will always stick out in my brain that they'll go beat a couple co-ed teams 16-0, but then come out and make a run to a state championship. Like,
right. I will say too, a lot of times conference schedules like the AAC, they make you play each team twice, home and away. So like D1 AAC Red, that takes up 12 of your 16 games. So that gives you 4 games to schedule outside of the conference, and you kind of got to juggle. Do you want to play 4 hard teams, 4 cakewalks? You just want to do it 2-2. So it doesn't really give you a whole lot of wiggle room when you're doing that kind of stuff.
I know athletic directors love that because they don't have to worry about it. It's already set in stone each year. They can go down 10 years from now and know exactly what the schedule will look like. But like you say, they need to give coaches a little more leeway in that to pick out the teams that they're going to make their team better in the long run.
Right.
Pitchmen is brought to you by
North Jackson Hydraulics. North Jackson Hydraulics does industrial and commercial repair of hydraulic pumps, cylinders, and hoses. Thank you so much for them for what they do. All right, so let's look at the boys' side of things. There's a big change for one team. Now, we look at, without looking at it, Dan, are you looking at it?
Not anymore.
Who is the biggest team in our area?
Without looking, I would have said Fitch, but I'm pretty sure they've been passed up. I would say Harding was the biggest for the girls. So I would say Harding for the boys.
It is Boardman. Boardman has 511 boys. And that doesn't include the outgoing seniors or the incoming freshmen, I believe. It's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is.
But they stayed the same. Harding's lost some. Fitch has gained some. Those are our only 3 Division I teams. What do we see out of them in 2023?
I think Harding, I don't really think they graduated too much from last year. And they've always had a hard fight to the end type mentality team. Where they lack in skill, they make up with tenacity all the time. Boardman, they have a coaching change.
Zach Stam, now the new coach, taking over for Eric Simeon.
They graduated a pretty good class. They got Mitchell be able to come back and play. After 2 devastating knee injuries. What's Sava going to be doing with them?
Yeah, will he play for that academy team or not?
Right. I think a lot of hinges on those 2 players right there for what the rest of the schedules, what the rest of the results will be. And Fitch, you never know. Last year we thought they were going to be really good. They ended up not having as good of a season as we thought they were going to have this year. They graduated a goalie that started 4 years in a row. So there's talent there. We'll see what happens.
I know they were a mix of seniors and young.
Right. That's exactly. There was not a whole lot in between.
And we had them predicted at something like 13 wins on the season, double digit easily, and they didn't have the season we thought they would.
No, and they play a tough schedule next year, a very tough schedule.
With those 4 games that outside of schedule pretty tough, and then their conference, Canfield twice, Howland twice, Boardman twice. Those were tough games last year. All right, so we look at Division II, added in as the smallest Division II school in our area. Mooney moves from D3 to D2. How do you think that's going to affect them?
That's huge. Yeah, it's not going to affect the results in the regular season. They're still going to play just as good because they, as a D3 school, they played almost like a D1 schedule, and they traveled quite a bit. But as we talked earlier, it doesn't mean it's any means less playing in Division III, but you can almost pencil them in to the regionals almost every year in D3, and that's going to now in order to get out there, they got to beat Howland, Canfield, Bay, Revere, if they want to get the regionals now.
Yeah, and the district is a little bit easier, but regionals is just as tough as it always has been.
Right. Yeah. As before D3, they had to beat Crestview or someone else like that.
South Range, I remember they played.
Instead of now, it'll be Howland, Canfield.
Yeah.
District finals.
So Howland, Canfield, the two largest schools. Hubbard, Niles, Salem, West Branch, Beaver. Again, not sure if they're in our district or not. Poland, Girard, Ursuline, Lakeview, and Mooney. Now Ursuline had 7 added in. They're the largest group so far in D2, but a lot of them stayed the same. I'm actually curious. Hubbard has very good coaches. Corey's been there for a very long time. They've had a lot of good talent come and go, but I don't think they've had a lot of postseason championships.
I could think a few years back when they beat Howland in was it the district finals or the regional semis? I don't remember. That was, I want to say 2019, right around there. They had a good run of a couple years where they were pretty good. But you're right.
Yeah,
school their size, they're
size with coaches that are that good,
that preach the right things. They play the game the right way.
Absolutely, former players. I was just talking to a former referee, Nick Atstis.
There you go. There's a name.
He was talking to me about some of the older things and some of the newer things, and how coaches and referees that played the game, you can tell right away because of the way they hold themselves and the way that they talk about the game and talk to each other. And I think Corey's a good example of that, of a guy who's a pretty good player in his day and came out as a pretty good coach too.
Yeah, that's very good. When you hear someone talking, your analysis of that, just by the verbiage they use, the way they speak about, he plays forward, midfield. No, they say number 9, false striker. They use numbers. They talk about different roles. It's very evident within 5 minutes of talking to another coach if they understand the game or not.
Yes. All right. Let's go to D3. 18 teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of them are co-ed. The biggest jump in numbers, 32 boys added in. Heartland Christian, no longer the smallest school in our area, or one of the smallest schools in the state of Ohio, like Dan had told me earlier. We have Grand Valley in there, Jackson, Milton, Maplewood, Matthews, Warren, JFK, only 93 boys. And they have a pretty good program. They're going to be good this year.
Yeah, success is going to bring more players there that are on the fringe. I will say, I do wonder, like Heartland Christian and JFK, I know that when you bring out of district players into your school, it counts as more weight than just one player in your district. I know if Heartland Christian brought in international players, or not players, I'm saying boys. That adds like 14 right there for one.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's not saying 32 people did not enroll into their extra, because it could have happened.
So maybe there's 4 outside their district players.
There could be other caveats to that.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Another team that I think is going to be really good this year, United.
How could they not be?
I know they graduated a couple key players, but with Maddox, Andrea, and some of the people whose names I will always butcher, I'm sorry, Loudon and there's another outside mid. They had a very good season this last year.
And I think this is, every team kind of has like a golden year, golden years kind of stack themselves up. And I think they're in the middle of that. It wasn't all senior driven last year. A lot of those teams have been playing together for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I know coming up, they still have good teams coming up too. So.
And well coached. Curtis Jones does an amazing job over there. He's been there for a while. I'm excited for this fall coming up and doing some of the live streaming games. I'm looking at schedules like, I hope we're available for this one. I hope we get to this one too. So
I will say United on anybody else. Not that I was expecting them to be back because we knew they were good, but they impressed me. They impressed the hell out of me last year watching them play because they're physical, they're fast, and they played the game the right way. They just didn't try to outrace everybody.
Correct.
A lot of these D3 teams, those hit the ball and have a guy faster. They played the right way. They defended as one.
And we went to it was one of our most watched live stream last year, them at JFK, and JFK is not a bad team either.
I think the biggest telling thing was their goalie, United's goalie, was going for like a shutout record, and they beat JFK. I think they're winning like 4, whatever. They're winning handily, and they gave up that goal, and the whole team was upset about that. Not just the goalie. I think the whole team was more upset that they let him down, that they let the ball get down there, and that's the makeup of a good team when you're all fighting for the same goal.
100%. And I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure he broke that record in a game or two after.
He certainly did.
Let's talk about some rule changes. Dan, do you have any of the rule changes for this upcoming year?
As far as off-season rule changes, they made it before. Used to be after June 1st. They had like 5 instructions. Since COVID came, COVID kind of put 2 years of unlimited ball work days and stuff like that. Last year they went back to 10 ball days and stuff like that. I believe they increased the number of ball days, and I know they now increased it from 4 players receiving instruction to 6 players, and you can start in the middle of May now.
You hit all 3 main topics.
How about that?
We have, before it was 10 ball work days, and what that means is for that day, you're allowed to practice with the ball. Put shin guards on, put spikes on, do ball work days. The other days, the ball is not allowed to be out. You're sprinting, you're doing core sets, you're doing runs, you're doing strength training, anything but using the ball to get better as a team. That used to have to start on June 1st. Now it starts on May 15th. And soccer is permitted a total of 18 days between May 15th and July 30th that are considered ball work days. That's a lot.
That is, and they extended it out 15 days. You could start too by going to May 15th.
Yes, and like you said before, they started adding in. You can have 4 players in a given day work with the ball together. Now it's 6, which I think.
Does that increase for club too? Can club increase their numbers to 6 instead of 5?
I thought of that too. Can you have 6 players on the same team? Because before you can only have 4 playing together in the off season. My question is, what problem are we solving by having that? Like, I understand that they don't want to make it so that everything is mandatory and you have ball work days all throughout, and that if you miss and go on vacation, you'll miss. But hopefully coaches are aware that their players are children.
Right.
And that they are at the mercy of the parents that they're saying, hey, we're going down to Myrtle Beach. We're going down to Oak Island. We're going down to Daytona. We're going to miss a week here.
I think Ohio, I might be wrong, is one of the few states that have these rules in place as far as ball work days and amount of kids playing and stuff like that. I as a player, I hated it. As a coach, I never understood it, because if you're going to take the time, you want to make yourself better. Obviously, fitness is a big part of the game.
Yeah.
No doubt. You can get fitness in by playing soccer at the same time. You can work conditioning in and all that. And it's more fun for the kids doing it.
I don't know a single coach that would just play ball work days and have them not run at all. Just do little,
you can still do core sets and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But keep away small-sided games. They work the heck out of you, and you get a brain workout at the same time.
Chris, what was your favorite conditioning drill you've ever done?
Pass.
Oh, you're gonna say the 14 Thompsons or something like that the one time. 16, sorry.
You guys were ready. But yeah, I think they're moving in the right direction. I think that I would love to have known what the problem was. And again, it might have been the whole, if you do give all these ball work days, it's basically mandatory is starting on May 15th.
That's an angle I never thought of.
That's the only thing that I can think of. If anybody else has an idea, let me know. If anyone at home has an idea or anyone knows the answer to this, reach out to us. Let us know. Educate us if you can.
I wonder if it aligns with like football with like no pads and stuff like that after a certain date. I wonder if they're just trying to say, instead of soccer having, you can do whatever you want. There's football that only has to have like no pads up to a certain date, and then
why no basketball? There's only days that you're allowed to roll the ball out and use that as part of your instruction.
Big brother always taking it to the man.
There you go. While we talk about some of these rules, there are some wacky rules that, Dan, you said you've researched a little bit.
Right. I would say something I never knew of before makes sense. If you do not have quarter flags, you cannot play the game.
Nuh-uh.
And how about this? In 1974, in the World Cup final, I think it was one of the German teams did not roll out the corner flags, and they had to delay the game until they brought the corner flags out. Yeah. And I swear I played like in games in cow pastures without corner flags, 100%.
I think club teams and travel teams, they're like, nope. There's goalies, there's goals, there's lines. That's as good as we're getting right now.
Right. One thing I never knew before, in the 1860s,
oh boy,
you could fair catch a ball. I'm sure the balls were more like bowling balls back then. They weren't like nice round foam balls, but you used to be able to, when the ball was in the air, you could catch it and drop it to your feet and play.
Kind of like hockey style.
Yeah. You couldn't pass it. You had to drop it to your feet, but you could it was like rugby scrumming, catching it. They had to get on your way, and you could drop it and start playing like that. So off of punts, throw-ins, balls over the top, you could, instead of trying to trap it, you could catch it and put it down.
Now they do play. What was that Irish rules football? Is that something that
Australian rules football?
I swear again, TikTok rules my life. How I learned 90% of what I know. And I swear I saw it was like soccer. It was a soccer ball. It was soccer jerseys and goals, but they were running with it, and then they have to drop it and punt it every now and again. Maybe it's more towards that, because I know soccer spread out from football to the association soccer. What's another one?
Another one in the 1860s, they did not have a crossbar. They shot in like a rugby style goal where the upright things, all you had to do was get it in there.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. And they used to have.
Man, some of my teams would have been really good.
They also had, you know, like how they have golden goal?
Yes.
They also have silver goal. This is something I never heard of before. And it goes like this. If Team A scores in the first half of extra time, Team B will only have the remaining minutes of the first half to score. So if it's like a dual, like high school, they have 2 5-minute overtimes. Or,
Yeah.
Was it like that? Whatever.
They did that for club, I know.
If they have 2 sets of overtime, if the team scores in the first period, the game's over if the other team does not score after that. But if there's no score, it could go up to 2.
I never knew that.
And another one, UEFA. This changed recently. When I say recently, I mean like in the mid 1900s. Away goals in UEFA used to count as 2 instead of 1.
I remember that. They had more weight. I didn't know that they were 2 exactly. But
Yeah, I mean now if it's a tiebreaker, it goes on away goals.
Yeah.
So like aggregate, that's how they do it. But like it used to be, every away goal you scored would count for 2 for aggregate. That's the word.
What is it?
Aggregate.
All right, we'll add that in. Chris, do you have any goofy rules that you've encountered as a player or as a coach?
Yeah, you know, I have one. It's actually a basketball rule.
I'll punch you right now.
But some professionals choose to bring it over to soccer as well. It's a good one called verticality.
Yep. No, I've heard of that one. It is not in the rule book, mind you, but it was given a PK to a state-ranked team that we were losing to. All right.
I have one more that I don't understand.
Go ahead, because I only have one after
Okay.
this.
Substitutions.
Yes.
I find it odd that the higher up you go, the less subs you can do. College, if you sub out, you cannot sub back in that half.
But you can sub back in the game, just not that half.
Yeah, not the same half. High school, unlimited subbing. All growing up, unlimited subbing. You get to the highest level. It used to be 3 subs per game before COVID. COVID happened. Now you can do 5. Before 1965, there was no subs in it.
Get out.
No subs in a FIFA game.
1965, you could not sub. You had that's my 11. I'm out.
That is it.
Someone gets hurt, we're playing with 10.
But why do they have a substitution limit? That's something I don't understand. I know it adds a little bit of strategery.
Yes.
I
But
wonder if it has anything to do with like time. I know they have extra time and stuff, but how many times in a high school game in the past have you, before they changed the rules, would you waste 5 minutes just you come out, get right back on the line?
I got in trouble for that one time.
You know
I
what
took
I mean?
the-
So I
rodeo
want-
subbing?
I want-
Rodeo
yeah,
subbing?
Yes.
exactly.
That too. I mean, you look at the Greece-France UEFA game last night. There was 14 minutes of extra time in
well,
the second half because of the murder that happened.
the murder of Antoine Griezmann. No, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure there's a reason. Usually rules and laws get put into place because there's a problem that's occurring and they got to stop it or alter it in some way. In my experience, I've also learned that there are people who just want to put in rules to say, oh, I added some rules to a book that have no bearing whatsoever and only apply to a very small portion of people. So, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me either. You figure, you know, every other sport, you look at football, you look at basketball, you look at, well, baseball has like a pitching. You come out, you can't go back in.
Right.
But that's more of a protect your arm type of thing.
According to Google,
Here. God bless you, Chris.
the number of substitutions is limited to prevent too much interference during the game.
So just like back and forth, people coming off because people
Yeah. It's basically just to save time and
malarkey.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Interesting. The one that I learned, I was taught by a opposing player. We were playing Camfield. Kid had a really long throw in, and as he threw it in, he'd step on the line with toes on the field. And I look and I go, hey, that has to be a violation. I go to the AR politely, as I do.
Yeah.
In my defense, this one I actually was polite. And I go, hey, you see him stepping over, right? He goes, you're allowed to do that, coach. I had to look it up myself last time I reffed these team. And I'm like, no way. He goes, I'll help you look it up at halftime, which I thought was the nicest thing that an AR has ever said to me.
I can attest to that.
Better than go read the rule book. Go read the rule book.
So I went over and sure enough, even to the FIFA level, I actually went on Twitter and tweeted at FIFA to ask them, why is it that you're allowed to have both feet totally on the field as long as a little bit of both feet are on the line. So I can have my heels barely on the line rest of my feet on the field, and I can throw it in.
That's kind of the same thing as with the goals. Is the ball has to be 100%.
So that's exactly what they said. You are not 100% on the field.
But if the goalie touches the ball half an inch outside the box, that's a handball.
Correct.
So yeah, you would think so. If your heels are on the line, your hands are definitely in the field.
Right. It was that, and I said, well, what was the reasoning behind this? Because okay, I understand that is the rule. Why did you do that? And they said at a grassroots level, at the youth level, they're putting fields like right next to each other, so you might not have a lot of room. So being able to have that little bit extra to use is what they said is the rule for. So some goofy rules there. Or if anyone listening has any rule that isn't a rule that a referee tried to pull on you, please email us with your explanation of what happened, because I would love to be able to talk about some referee decisions, because we have some good referees and we have a couple that are just
that try to apologize for the bad ones.
Yes, let's put it that way. So I would love to hear everyone's story. You can say it anonymously. We will not say your name or where you're from, because I know people are afraid to say, no, I don't want refs to be against us during the season. My kid still plays.
Yeah, coaches don't say that.
All right. Last thing that we want to talk about, we always take the last portion of our show and we have to talk about worldly soccer issues and things. And the one that's in the forefront of my mind is the USA-Mexico game. I know each of you have seen either parts of it or all of it. Chris, I'm going to start with you, because we never start with you, Chris. What did you think of the parts that you saw of the game?
Really just watching short clips on YouTube. The main thing I saw was just it was Mexico was just playing downright dirty. Mm-hmm. You know, I felt like just from that one or two plays that I watched, I can't say for the whole game, but they were just more interested in taking the player than any play on the ball. And I felt that, you know, the U.S. players kept their composure fairly well, and we're just trying to fight through and play the game. But yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah, that had the feeling of mid-1990s high school soccer.
I was going to bring that point up. I was just getting ready to say that.
Because the rule was either the man or the ball got past you, not both, and you got to swing your leg at one of them.
That's exactly what happened.
And it got ugly. It was lack of discipline. I'm surprised we're not hearing anything about fines or suspensions.
I think the U.S. broke Mexico in that game. Because there's three facets of the game. Mid-90s was you're going to beat them physically, mentally, and on the scoreboard. And all three of those things were three things that really did happen every single game. And that game reminded me of that. Like you said, I thought U.S. Kept their wits about them. Dents and McKinney both got a red card in that game, which luckily it didn't cost us in the finals against Canada. But both of those red cards, if I'm in their situation that they're in, I'm doing the same thing. Yeah, you can't sit back and let someone provoke you. Absolutely not. It's tough to say when you're up 3-0. Right. Though. I'm sure coaches got laced in them a little bit. I'm sure 6 games in a row that United States they're unbeaten against Mexico in 6 straight. That's impressive. Mexico still leads the all-time series. I don't know what the record is, but right now that was the most. If I was a Mexico fan right there, I was thinking our team is scrap the whole thing. Well, they canceled the game early for homophobic chants coming out of when the goalkeeper would kick a goal kick. They'd scream it, and they had a delay for about 10 minutes, came back and played, and then they did it again, so they just scrapped the game. I wondered, do they do that if the game's still if it's 0-0 tied, do they still cancel the game? I mean, they do in Europe, so I would assume they would. That would be difficult as a player to be like, my fans are ruining it for us. We have a chance to beating a team that's our rival, and they're ruining it. Yeah, rowdy fans.
Well, Dan, if you're interested, we talked about the series. Started in 1934. Overall, Mexico holds the series at 36, 17, and 23. But since 2000, the U.S. has taken over 18, 8, and 9.
Sorry. All right, so USA on the upswing. I think we're getting a lot of good players. I think we're getting a lot of players that are... Because I've noticed France, a lot of the players from France aren't from France. Yeah, we're getting dual citizen players. Yes. Like Balogun coming over here. A lot of dual Mexican guys, too, coming on our side. How about our coach? Selecting Berhalter again? Yeah. This is wishful thinking. I was hoping for a big name like Zidane over from Europe. At the same time,
I think we got like a golden age of players right now. I feel like we have a good core of some very high talented, high end players. I don't want to throw the whole thing up in a monkey wrench and who knows. I don't hate the hire. I just, it's weird that you reset everything just to hire him again.
Yeah.
I don't have confidence in you to hire you back, but we couldn't find, nobody else wanted the job, so we're taking you back.
And that whole issue with Reina and the family and the marital problems and stuff like that,
that sounds like that was more Reina's family than Berhalter, but I don't know. I hope they work through it because Reina is a heck of a player.
Well, when do they play next?
They play in the Gold Cup, but it's like a whole different roster, so a whole different roster.
Why is that?
It's MLS heavy this time.
Really? On purpose?
I think they have 2 squads. They must not like the...
It's like the Harlem Globetrotters. You're not getting the A squad.
Yeah.
On the girls' side, women's, I should say, FIFA World Cup coming up in end of July, right?
Time flies.
Yeah. It's a little strange that they're doing it the same 1 year after.
That's because, again, COVID pushed everything back.
Yeah.
For the men's, it pushed it back a year. Or was it the women's?
It might have been the women's.
Okay.
But I do know, I like the fact of having your Continent Cup every 2 years. So like the Euros go crazy, Copa America goes crazy. We have whatever we just had. But every 2 years, so everyone can kind of have that break and it gives you something to look forward to. What's the next Olympics?
Paris 2024. Am I wrong on that?
Next a year from
that's the summer
next month.
It's the Summer Olympic Games, July 26, 2024 through August 11th.
There we go. Next Olympics next year, we're going to see a whole new USA team, right? Because they do like the under 20 team goes and represents us.
Under 20, you can have 4 players above the age of 23 for the Olympics, which is an odd thing, but
that is.
But again, the same teams that are good are still going to be good, regardless of that.
Well, 100%. All right. Well, if there's nothing else for the order of the good, anything you could think of. All right. That's been the Steel Valley Soccer Podcast, Pitchman.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Pitchmen, a Steel Valley Soccer production. Email us at steelvalleysvs@gmail.com to give suggestions, corrections, or any comments you want us to hear. For more information, go to steelvalleysoccer.com.